Hey, welcome back. It's Sarah from Roadworthy here to do a weekly update. So, um, let's see. Knuckles the Greyhound was taken to another foster family yesterday, so my vacation coverage duties are over. Um, so we had to meet his new foster person like 30 minutes south of the city, and then rush back into the city to go to a Sounders game. Now, a soccer game, for those of you not in the know. So, going into the stadium, they have this bag policy, right? You can't bring in a purse. Like, you can bring in a little, like, wristlet of a certain size, or you can bring in a clear bag with your crap. Well, I don't have much crap, right? Like, I needed a wallet, a phone, a car key, lip gloss. So it was hot, but I figured by the time the game is over, 9:30, 10 o'clock, I probably would want a jacket, right? So I brought my denim jacket and I just shoved my things in the pockets and I carried that in. Fine. Not fine. I lost my wallet and I'm so pissed and so upset about it because I never lose anything. And I was convinced last night I didn't pack it, but I can't find it anywhere. And I think I packed it. Anyway, I looked in the car. I actually, the stadium has a lost and found office, so I contacted them. Nothing's been spent on my credit cards, so I'm kind of actually hopeful that it may actually end up in lost and found somewhere. I'm still hopeful I'm going to get it back. But everybody else thinks I'm crazy. But what I'm really upset about that's in there is like a gift certificate to a bookstore. I also have like a gift certificate, I think, to REI in there. And I kind of need some new fleece pants. So I'm a little bummed that that might be gone forever. But I'm really bummed about my bookshop gift card that's maybe gone forever. So wish me luck with that one. What else? We're gearing up to head over to the Washington coast. It's still been warm here, and so going to the coast would be lovely. Except we go next week, or this coming week, which is when it's going to cool down here. So it'll be in the 70s here, which is normal summer temperatures, which means the coast will be, I don't know, in the 60s. Windy, um, anyway, it would have been even more lovely at the coast if it was a little warmer, to be honest. But anyway, that'll be a lovely break. And I'm sure it will take us a bit of time and wrangling to figure out what board games we're going to bring for those few days. So that's what we've got coming up. So what did I finish reading this week? The Red-Headed Pilgrim by Kevin Maloney. This is autofiction about a character named Kevin Maloney. Now, the author blurb says, blah, 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 Kevin Maloney, la, 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 la. At times, a grocery clerk, outdoor school instructor, organic farmer, electrician, high school English teacher, teddy bear salesman, and he currently works as a web developer and writer. And he lives in Portland. Well, the character Kevin Maloney does all those same exact things in this book. I picked this book because it is was comical. Kevin is really on a quest to sort of be a writer, do what he really wants to do, avoid turning into his father. But while he's really on this adult journey of who I am, he's also trying to lose his virginity. So it's in his high school years and then largely in his 20s, this book. And there are parts of it that are very, very funny. And his writing style is very funny. But there are things like he just makes stupid decisions over and over. Moving, being not quite settled, drinking too much, smoking too much marijuana. He and his girlfriend get married because she's pregnant. Now I think this book, I think I really would have enjoyed this book if I hadn't just read The Tragedy of Heterosexuality last week by Jane Ward. And a lot of that book is covering the ground of how women suffer from misogyny and the patriarchy. And it's like, Kevin, you are like an example of that. And so, although he was kind of quirky and funny and kind of a lovable misfit, as the book goes on, it becomes less lovable and more of like, you've got to grow up and stop being such a self-centered jerk. And then I struggled with that because, again, having this be autofiction, I kept wondering in my mind how much of this is fake and how much of it is real. And that's really a stand-in question for how much is Kevin Maloney in real life a jerk? So I ended up having all of these thoughts, which really have nothing to do with the book. So okay, here's an example. So they're, they have their baby. Zoe is a difficult baby. She cries a lot. She doesn't sleep very well. They're just really having a hard time parenting. His wife, Wendy, is at home with this baby, and he goes to work part-time in the grocery store in the local organic food co-op in Vermont. And so, they have lots of financial issues. They're in rural Vermont. There's lots of issues. The marriage really suffers. And he says, so this is like after 2 years. He was like, well, Wendy's approach to our marital problems was just to hope it all went away. So after 2 years, I called a marriage counselor. And I'm like, wait a minute. You let this go on for 2 years. It sounds like you're also thinking that if you just ignore it, it'll go away. And then, again, because the marriage is not going well, Wendy refuses to have sex with him. And again, goes on for like 2 years. And so he starts to refuse to clean the litter box, as he says, as punishment for not having sex with him. And again, I can't help. So, like, is he supposed to be this immature? Like, is he an exaggerated, immature man-child version of the author Kevin Maloney, or again, how much of this is Kevin Maloney? That got to be a very distracting question by the end of this book. Just finished The Diviners by Margaret Laurence. This is a buddy read with Lindy and Maya. Lindy over at Magpie Reads and Maya of Maryland, Maya Mendoza. This is the third book in the Maniac trilogy. So Lindy and Maya had read the other two together and asked me to join them for the third one. And we all really, really enjoyed this book. It's very clear why Margaret Laurence is a beloved Canadian author. And it's unfortunate that she is not better known here in the United States. I had never heard of her. None of her books were available in the library here. And she's like, again, well-regarded modern novelist. This book is about Morag Gunn, who is orphaned as a young child and lives with this couple, Christy and Pren, in the fictional town of Maniwaka, where she grows up. And it's a coming of age. It's her path into adulthood and growing up, interspersed with sort of the modern day story of her daughter, Peak, similarly going through some of the same challenges that we saw Morag go through in her past. Trying to figure out who she is, where she comes from, what's her purpose, what's her passion. Lindy, Maya, and I don't want to say too much about the plot. It's I feel like, she was writing, this was written in the 80s, sort of at the same time that John Irving is writing. And there's a lot about it that's similar in that he writes a lot, or he wrote a lot about relationships and families. But there was a lot of humor in his writing. And there could be quirky weirdness in his writing, which Margaret Laurence doesn't have so much of, but I just feel like in some ways their tone is similar. The writing style feels similar to me. Margaret Laurence is very interested in sort of the plight of women. You know, growing up in the 50s, 60s, 70s, what options were available to women, looking at attitudes towards indigenous peoples, rural people, city people. Just it was sort of almost epic in scope in a lot of ways because it covers a lot of time period and a lot of cultural change. Um, but just done, Morag was such a complex character. Her relationship with her daughter Peak, her romantic relationships, all of these things were done with these characters who were very nuanced and complicated. There's nobody who feels like a cookie cutter in here. It was all, and in Lindy, Maya, and I checked in after every single chapter, which you would think, boy, that's a lot. But we had tons and tons and tons to say. Everything about her nature writing to, oh my God, this line was so funny. Oh, this line was so beautiful. Um, to discussions of what was meant by this conversation. What were the motivations of this character? Because again, everybody was so complex that, in some cases we had different interpretations of really what was going on and um, what how to interpret different comments or conversations or decisions that people had made, characters had made. So this is just incredibly rich, um, just a wonderful, wonderful experience. Um, and, I'm intrigued to find more Margaret Laurence books because she is clearly a wonderful, wonderful writer. Um, and I wish she was kind of more well known in the United States. Um, yeah. So I just finished this, so I need to find something else. Don't know what that's going to be. I'm also reading The Maniac by Benjamin Labutat, and he is a Chilean writer who grew up in Holland. Um, this is a book about um, the Hungarian polymath John von Neumann, tracing the impact of his singular legacy on the dreams and nightmares of the 20th century and the nascent age of AI. Um, I uh, I'm really enjoying this, and I'm very surprised. So, I guess the author describes this as a novel based on fact. Is that historical fiction? Um, I mean, in some places it reads like narrative nonfiction. Um, anyway, it's an interesting style. Um, and when I was looking at reviews in Goodreads, lots of people said this was good, but not as good as his earlier book, When We Cease to Understand the World. So I'm not very far into this, and I'm so far I'm into it. I'm intrigued, and I'm intrigued to read his debut. Um, although he lives in Chile now, and I think this is written in English. I can't find reference to a translator, and I know he does speak English. So I'm reading that, and I'm listening to This Strange Eventful History by Claire Messud. This is her new book that is loosely based on her family. So they are a French Algerian family. So they're ethnically French, speak French, they're, Caucasian. Um, and the patriarchs of this family grew up in Algiers. And so you're sort of following this family, um, from the outbreak of World War II, excuse me, um, through uh, modern modern times. So you're following the subsequent generations and watching uh, this family. It sort of reminds me of A History of Burning by Janika Oza, in the sense that you get this family saga, but each part being told by a different family member in the next generation, um, which I think is a interesting way to tell that them family saga. So um, I'm enjoying it. I feel like this could go either way. So that's it. That's what I got happening this week. So I hope you are getting some good reading in during these lazy, hazy days of summer. And I will hopefully check in with you next week in between vacations.